Welcome back for another product look at with me. Today what we're looking at is the complete ARP bolts and studs for the 2.0T Genesis Coupe. What we've got here is flywheel bolts, cam tower bolts, head stud kit, and main stud kit. So the first thing we want to talk about is why would you spend all the money on this stuff? Well, quite simply, ARP is quite possibly the best fastener company in North America. So if you're going to be upgrading to anything, you should be definitely looking at these guys. Now, why would you upgrade your studs and your bolts? Well, a couple of reasons. One, ARP stuff can be retorqued, and what that means is that if you're torquing down a hone plate, you can torque it down with the head stud kit, and then you can take the torque off of it to put the actual head on after you're done honing and reuse those same studs. That means you're getting a more consistent torque for the whole process. That means that you're not getting any surprises down the road. Now, out of all of these stud kits, your head stud kit is the one you definitely want to buy, okay? Because your head studs take all of the shit and abuse of the combustion cycle, so they actually take a lot of stress loading. Now, let's look at the stud kit, and you'll see what I'm talking about. This stud screws into your block, okay? And then your head slides down on top of the stud. This part here has to be able to handle all of the stresses of your combustion cycle. So these studs are actually really, really important, and ARP includes with them proper washers, proper 12-point nuts, and their own personal fastener assembly lubricant. Now this stuff is really important because as you're assembling these, you want to make sure that you have the correct torque on them. Now ARP has specially formulated this with their torque specs. So when they say put this lubricant on and torque this down to, say, 90 foot-pounds, it's more than that, but they're saying that we promise that if you do this correctly, this stud won't fail, and if it does fail, we'll take responsibility for it. That's what they're basically saying. But if you don't use this and you just torque this in dry, not only are you not lubricating the threads as you're putting them in, but you're also not doing it to the correct methodology that they've used for determining how much torque is actually on this. So they include all of this with their kit. So you might be thinking, oh, I can get the head studs cheaper. They don't include all of this with it. And when they don't include all of this with it, you don't get a guarantee. And you're basically left in the wind if something does go wrong. So out of all of these studs, these are your most important. These ones are, like, if you're taking your head off, spend the extra money, buy a set of these studs. Plain and simple, there's no other way to do it. This is recommended by engine builders across the world that these are the studs you buy. And these ones are the specifically, I don't know if you guys can see it, Hyundai 2.0 liter G4KF Turbo head stud kit. So these are the ones that are built for this car. So no mishaps, those are it. Now these ones are your main studs. Your main studs are what hold the main bearing caps onto the block. So you've got your crankshaft and your main bearing cap bolts down. So as your crankshaft is getting forced down by the stroke, these studs take all of that force to make sure that it doesn't move. So these are really important studs. Not as important as these ones, but these are really important studs too, because if you go up in horsepower, you want these studs. They will make sure that you don't end up with a main bearing cap failure if assembled correctly. And in this stud kit, they include, again, their fastener lubricant. Okay, they give you some stickers. Now they notice that this box is needed for exchange or warranty. you must have the weight, date, and package number from this box for all warranties and exchanges. Now, I'm assuming that's because when these boxes are loaded up, they're not loaded up by hand, they're loaded up by a machine that does it by weight, so that might be it. And then this is your install information for these specific parts. And these are your studs. Now, these studs have their own fasteners. Now these have a washer integrated into the bolt, okay, so that's really important to know. And these ones are the ones that are designed specifically for the coupe again. So, very, very important that those are the ones you buy. You don't just go with anything. And then these two packages over here are probably the least important. These are cam tower studs, or bolts. They hold the cam tower bearing caps to the head, and they're not super important, but because I'm taking everything apart anyways, I decided to opt for these. It's a good idea to change your or at least inspect your cam tower bolts when you take your engine apart, because that gives you the peace of mind that no, there's not going to be a failure because they're torqued correctly, they're installed correctly, blah 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 blah. Because I'm doing that process during my engine build, I'm opting to put these in at the same time. That protects my cams, that protects any warping of the head, because everything's going to be torqued correctly, because these actually help maintain the twist of the head. Almost all cams do. So that's these. They're not super important if you're rebuilding your engine on a budget. First, second, third, last. These are the flywheel bolts. These are for holding the flywheel to the crankshaft. Now you might be going, well, why are these important? Well, the simplest reason is because everything that is output through the engine gets put to the flywheel then puts it to the clutch, and blah 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 blah. Well, these have to take all of those forces. Every single ounce, every single foot-pound, these have to take all these forces. And ARP made these bolts so you can do that reliably, and you're not going to end up with a possible shear factor. Now, how high of a chance that is? So far in the Genesis Coupe we haven't run into it, because the Hyundai actually does make pretty good bolts. But for a couple of bucks, you get peace of mind. That's what you're buying, is you're buying peace of mind and reliability, because these will do it, probably for 10 years, no problem. But if you're constantly taking everything apart and putting it back together, well, that's where these things really pay off, because you can reuse them. It's kind of one of those gray areas when they're not to reuse them, but from what I understand, you can reuse these. So if you're changing flywheels, you might be able to get 2 flywheels out of these before having to change them, whereas the factory Hyundai ones you change every single time. So if your technician bolts up your flywheel and then takes your flywheel off and then rebolts it back on, when he rebolts it, he's technically, according to Hyundai guidelines, supposed to replace those flywheel bolts. Does he? I don't know. That's up to the technician. But for peace of mind, if you're doing it, do these. Spend it. They're not expensive. They're the least expensive of all of these. And when you're buying in Canada, definitely pick up from Unique Performance, because Rob is an excellent guy. He was able to get me all of these studs all at once and ship them out to me all in a big box with a bunch of other stuff. So that's what you want to do if you're rebuilding your engine. This is the studs you look at. Now your rod caps, the bolts on those will come with your rods, and I'll cover that in another video. But you'll notice that a lot of rod companies use ARP. So you get that reliability, that name going into your engine, knowing that you're buying basically the best that you can buy for your engine. And in my opinion, that's really important, considering that I don't want my engine to blow up or anything like that. Now, these do not make it so your engine cannot blow up. It just gives you the strongest threshold that you can possibly have. So, thank you to Rob at Unique Performance for hooking me up with these studs. Definitely, guys, check him out. His link will be in the description. And you can buy pretty much everything for your Genesis Coupe directly from Unique Performance, which is awesome as a Canadian, because I don't have to deal with duty fees or anything like that. And Rob actually does have stuff in warehouse, so he's not getting a lot of it drop shipped, which is good, because if there's an issue, he can usually sort it out a lot quicker, especially because he's Canadian, than what you'd be doing if you'd have to be constantly buying parts from the States. So factor all that stuff into your build. But so in importance is head stud kit, main studs, flywheels, flywheel bolts, and then cam tower bolts. So if you have to put your money into anything, put them into these. Absolutely put them into these. So thanks again for everybody who decided to tune in and watch another one of my ranting reviews on products and parts. And definitely make sure that you subscribe and follow along, because there's going to be a lot more. There is still actually quite a bit more that's on its way, and we still have the entire engine to pull out of the Genesis Coupe, and rebuild. So definitely make sure that you guys pay attention for that, and don't forget to check out my build thread on GenCoupe.com. We now have a build thread section, so it's really easy to find. You go into the GenCoupe, the specific section of the forum, and you'll see build and something, and click in there and you look for Project Woodstock, and you can follow up and catch up on all of these videos and anything that I've written up on it. So thanks again for watching. Have a good day, guys.